why does the prototype not kill player? There's something that doesn't add up. The prototype has had multiple chances to kill player. It sees you, follows you, and knows exactly where you are, and still doesn't do it. And that's not a coincidence, my friends, because in Poppy Playtime, when the prototype lets you live, it's because it's using you. This lines up with what we already know about the prototype story. And by the way, if you haven't seen the video where we break it down, we'll leave it here in this card. In short, the prototype doesn't destroy you just because. It collects parts from other experiments, takes advantage of what's left, and uses anything that's useful. So, is it doing the same thing with player? It's not that the prototype can't kill player. It's that it doesn't benefit from doing it. Because if he eliminates player, it loses a tool. But if it lets you keep going, it gets everything it needs without exposing itself. This is where things get worse. Because it might want to turn player into another experiment. That's why it threw us into the Poppy gel instead of killing us directly, to prepare us and begin the surgery. Why is everything still working in the factory? There's something no one really stops to think about. After years, the factory is still running, and it even looks like all its systems are still properly maintained. And that doesn't happen by magic. An abandoned factory doesn't stay like that on its own. So, the most obvious answer is that someone or something is keeping it in optimal condition. But who? We have a possible answer. The prototype. The prototype doesn't just survive inside the factory. It uses it. It moves through it constantly. It understands it better than anyone. And if it depends on that place to exist, then it has no reason to let it collapse. That opens up a very logical possibility that the prototype, along with other experiments, possibly its allies, are keeping the factory running. Because it's basically their home. And that would explain why everything's still active after so many years. Are Huggy Wuggy and Kissy Missy dead? In Chapter 5, something happens that completely changes the game. The prototype takes down Huggy Wuggy and Kissy Missy. At first glance, it looks like they both died. But the game never confirms it absolutely. In Poppy Playtime, someone falling doesn't always mean they're gone for good. We're talking about experiments that have survived much worse. A clear example is Sawyer. We thought we had finished him, but he was still alive. And considering we're talking about very loved characters, and Huggy Wuggy is basically the face of Poppy Playtime, I don't think they're dead yet. They were possibly helped in some way with the Poppy gel, which could lead to them helping us defeat the prototype. What does the prototype want with Poppy? There's something here that doesn't fit with the idea that the prototype is just a monster. Because if that were true, Poppy would already be dead. But she isn't. Every time it has the chance, it doesn't destroy her. It takes her and keeps her. And that completely changes how we need to see this. These actions tell us that the prototype sees value in Poppy. And if you connect it with what we already know about its story, it starts to make a lot of sense. The prototype doesn't destroy just to destroy. It reuses what's left of other experiments. So with Poppy, the logic points to the same thing. It's keeping her because she's useful. And this is where it gets more interesting. Because Poppy is not just any experiment. She's stable, she's conscious, she has control. She's one of the few experiments that truly understand what's happening inside the factory. That makes her more than a victim. It makes her a key piece. That's why the prototype keeps her, because it may need her intact for something much bigger. Why does Player return to the factory? One theory says that Player believes he can help the survivors, or somehow put an end to everything horrible that happened. It seems like Player was part of the factory staff, and in some way, he carries that resentment. And this actually makes a lot of sense, because going back to the factory is not normal, which means a player is not just anyone. There's something important about him in this story that hasn't been resolved yet. Who is Player? One of the biggest mysteries in all of Poppy Playtime is Player, because so far the game never tells you who he really is. And this is where things get strange. Everything points to him not being a normal person. He's someone who probably had a major connection to Playtime Co. From the very beginning, you can use the grab pack with no problem, interact with factory systems, and survive things that a normal person shouldn't. It's like Player knows more than we thought. And this connects to something key in the factory, the Poppy Jail. We know this jail is capable of keeping experiments alive, of modifying the body, or completely changing what someone is. So the question is simple. What if Player was modified too? There's no official confirmation, but there are enough clues to think he's not completely human. And if that's true, then you're not exploring the factory, you're reliving your past. What is Harley Sawyer now, really? There's a character almost no one is fully understanding in Chapter 5, and of course, it's Harley Sawyer. Sawyer is no longer a human. After everything he did in the factory, the company ended up doing the same thing to him. They turned him into a part of the system, basically a consciousness integrated into the technology that controls the factory. He's not alive like before, but he's not dead either. And that raises a very interesting question. If he's inside the system, how much control does he actually have? Because if you think about it, the factory doesn't run on its own. Doors open, systems respond, things react exactly when they should. That doesn't feel fully automatic. It's possible Sawyer is still fulfilling his role, keeping the factory running like some kind of system guardian. Or he could be doing something much darker. Because if Poppy Playtime has made anything clear, it's that no one who went through those experiments keeps a normal mind. So, if Sawyer is still inside the factory, is he maintaining order or waiting for the perfect moment to take control again? What is the factory really? After Chapter 5, the factory stops feeling like just an abandoned place. It feels like it has awareness, like a system that is constantly watching. Because, if you think about it, it's not a coincidence that everything works exactly when you need it. And this is where it gets heavy. If Sawyer still exists inside the system, and the prototype also has control over some parts of the factory, then you're no longer inside a normal facility. You're inside something that functions like a complete system, with total control, and possibly with consciousness. And if that's true, the factory isn't just active, the factory is alive. What other experiments exist? The prototype is not the worst thing in the factory, it's just the one we know. Because the ARG has already made one thing clear. There are more, many more, experiments we've never seen, and some that were never even revealed. So now, all that's left is to wait and see what Chapter 6 brings us.